This is Brian Carlton for ABN Newswire. We're here at the Symposium Resource Roadshow at the Bowlers Club of New South Wales, and joining me, somebody I've spoken to in the past, CEO of Australian Bauxite Limited, ASX code ABZ, Ian Levy. G'day, how are you going? Nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you too.
Now, you've been moving at a rate of knots even in the couple of weeks since we did last speak. What's been the big announcement recently?
The big achievement of the company is the announcement of a maiden bauxite resource estimate. It's in the first of our tenements at Inverell in northern New South Wales, and it came out at a 22 million tonne bauxite resource.
From a look on your face, that's bigger than you expected.
It is a bit bigger than we expected, but what really changed our focus to a slight degree was we found that we'd got a bit of a tiger by the tail in that we were able to identify bauxite over a very large area, much larger than we had drill tested. And in fact, our estimate is that our bauxite resource has come from less than 5%, certainly less than 10% of the prospective ground where bauxite is found at surface.
So there's still so much potential there.
There's a fair bit more than we had anticipated. We are very excited by this, and just one of those unexpected things.
It's a very pleasant, unexpected occurrence though, isn't it?
That's correct. Mining has its ups and downs, and you have to have the ups occasionally.
Now, the transfer of title for the Queensland bauxite tenements that we talked about last time, they're very large as well, aren't they?
They are. We've had the opportunity in the last week and a half to visit them in some detail and to sample them in a lot more detail than we have done in the past, and we're fairly confident that one of those areas in particular, one of the deposits that we found up there, will certainly be in our top 3 resource targets.
And it ticks all the boxes in terms of infrastructure, access to export markets. I mean, it really is a very good area to be operating in for what you're doing, isn't it?
It certainly is, but a nice little feature of it was that the best looking bauxite deposit so far happened to occur in a pine tree forest. And there might be a few nervous pine trees.
Bit of value added there, perhaps?
Yeah, I think we can make a lot more money out of bauxite than out of pine trees.
I'm sure you can. Now, some of the bauxite deposits are actually under a layer of rock. How much does that add to your cost?
We would probably avoid mining material that's covered by basalt, but some of the rock that's just sitting a metre or two above the bauxite is so soft that we can free dig it, and it may actually not be any significant cost at all. The interesting thing is that immediately underneath the covering rock type is possibly our best quality bauxite, so it's a trade-off between quality and cost.
Now, the bauxite deposits you do have, they've been in the literature for years, haven't they? What was the process? What happened to make you go, you know, we can get in there and do this? And despite nobody else really having a go and not really getting into the literature to the extent you did, who had the brainwave to sit down and go, we really need to re-examine all this stuff?
Certainly not me. Our chief geologist is the person who's created this business and created this growing value, and his name is Jacob Rebeck. He was the chief geologist for Rio for quite a few years.
Okay.
And he kept telling Rio that bauxite was worth exploring for in Eastern Australia. But Rio went through a transformation as a business, and it was unable to change its strategy quickly enough. They have since changed, but in the meantime, since 2006 through to the end of 2009, Jacob explored every single back road in Eastern Australia. He wore out 6 sets of tyres, and he secured for us the core of a major new bauxite province.
I'm beginning to glean from talking to many people working in the resources sector that's happened before, it's happened in other places, and we really kind of as a nation don't understand the extent of the resources we do have for that reason. We're just beginning to get it now, and you smaller players are moving in and going, you know, we can do this where the big guys haven't done it.
That's a very, very valid point. With China emerging as a step function in the demand, and the introduction of hundreds of millions of new consumers needing industrial products like bauxite, which is the raw material to manufacture aluminium from, aluminium metal, it behoves us here in Australia to re-look at our entire continent to see if there are major new resource areas that need a second look. And that's exactly what Jacob has done. In 2002, nobody thought that Chinese demand for bauxite would ever be significant. Now they're the dominant customer.
Because we talked about that last time, didn't we? The demand curve looked fairly flat, given that there was so much recycling going on. But what's really caused it to spike recently? And where do you see that trend going? Obviously up, or you wouldn't be in the business.
No,
but,
that's right.
What are the drivers for that?
Well, what's happening is in the aluminium metal manufacture industry, it's moving from the old world economies of Europe, America, into the emerging nations like China and other North Asian countries. That transfer of the metal manufacturing capacity into China is quite fundamental because China has no bauxite.
None at all.
None at all. And so they rely on imports of the raw materials. And Australia's objective is to make sure that they pay a fair price and that we ship large tonnages to them.
Do we have a little bit of extra leverage given that we already have about 60% of global exports of bauxite? Does that put us in a bit of a box seat and you guys are almost driving the car, if I can mix metaphors?
That's true. We are the only place in the world near to China that is politically stable, has a very efficient engineering and mining sector, with surplus resources to our own individual needs. China undoubtedly looks to Australia to lift its game in this area, and usually it's the small, emerging, more entrepreneurial and faster moving companies like ours that usually trigger this process. We know that our biggest risk is being gobbled up through takeover. We've tried to structure the company so that we at least get 2 years free run to add value for our shareholders before we start to become more exposed to the market. And when I say that, our parent company, Hudson Resources, is sitting on 70% of the shares. And it's a medium-term player, there's no doubt about that.
So mergers and acquisitions
are off the agenda until we have a chance to really deliver the resources. I shouldn't say it's totally off the agenda. At the right price, if an 800-pound gorilla comes along, everything's for sale. But we think we can generate multiples of our current value by proving up huge resources.
We're here at a resources roadshow. You've been talking to investors. What's the value to an investor of Australian Bauxite Limited?
Well, the value is that we're a new young company and it's an opportunity for an investor to get in early. We have some peers in the marketplace who have been in the business of establishing new bauxite resources for 3 or 4 years. And one of them in particular is valued at 200 million plus. And our current market cap is 30 million. So that's the big value.
And that's what, up 12 million since we last spoke, and that was
That's
only
true.
a few weeks ago.
That is true.
So everything's on the up for Australian Bauxite Limited. Ian Levy, CEO, great to meet you.
Thank you very much, Brian.
This is Brian Carlton for ABN Newswire.